Hello everybody, welcome to Wallboy Movies, the place to talk movies, and Hazbin Hotel Season 2 has finally premiered on Prime Video, and what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be breaking down the first two episodes that were released today for this new Hazbin Hotel season, and in three other videos I will be breaking down the other episodes as they release weekly, but here we're going to be talking about the first two episodes and what they went ahead and revealed and what they could be setting up for the rest of the season. But be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below your thoughts on these first two Hazbin Hotel episodes and what you think could be going down throughout the rest of the season. And obviously, spoilers ahead for the first two episodes of Hazbin Hotel Season 2. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so episode 1 titled New Pensions has two sides to this story, and I'm gonna start off with Charlie and the hotel side of this episode. And basically in this episode, Charlie is dealing with not only the stress of having so many residents at the hotel for the completely wrong reasons, that being killing angels, but she's still dealing with the loss of Sir Pensions from a month prior. And we see that through the scene where she's talking with one of the last surviving egg boys from Sir Serpentius, and it does lead to a conversation with her dad, Lucifer, about all this stress, which eventually leads her to go up to some news journalists that have been surrounding the hotel trying to interview her for quite a bit throughout the episode, where she tells them that no, this hotel is not for killing angels, this is a place for redemption, so if you're not here to redeem yourself, then get out. And so basically all the background characters essentially leave, but the only one that stays is the new resident and new character of the series, Baxter, who decides to stay at this hotel because of his scientific research on the concept of redemption, with his hypothesis being that redemption isn't possible. And based on the way this episode goes ahead and ends with Emily telling Charlie that, hey, redemption is possible and Sir Serpentius is up in heaven, I'm very curious to see how Baxter goes ahead and takes about that. Because from what we've seen in the trailers, Baxter seems to be sticking around at the hotel and maybe having a thing with Nifty. So I'm gonna want to know the explanation on why Baxter decides to stay at this hotel once Charlie tells everyone that redemption is in fact possible. Now some quick little things with this hotel side of this episode before we get into the V side of the episode is, for one, it's revealed that Angel Dust is going to therapy, most likely to deal with the trauma that Valentino has put upon him. And it also seems like that Vaggie is going to be wanting to change her name, maybe to distance herself from her angelic past. She does mention a few possible different names throughout this episode, so I'm wondering if that's going to be like a major storyline in this episode, and if she decides to fully change her name. Now, someone on Reddit went ahead and took a picture of this shot from this episode, revealing some hidden Easter egg cameos from the different sins from the H of a Boss series, where we get some cameos from Mammon, Ozzy, and Bezelab, not only fleshing out this connected universe, but also seemingly teasing that we will be seeing a crossover eventually, where we could actually see Charlie and Blitz interact canonically. And Nifty seems to be the most fan favorite among sinners staying at this hotel that want to kill angels, dubbing her the Adam Slayer, because she was the one that ended up killing Adam in the first season of Hazbin Hotel in that finale. But now let's go ahead and talk about the Vox and V side of this episode. Alright, so starting off, we see Vox and Katie Killjoy have an interaction with one another. Vox gets mad that Katie is talking about the good of the Hazbin Hotel and how he wants Katie to spin the story on to make the Hazbin Hotel look bad, which ultimately happens by the end of the episode, where after Charlie kicks out all the sinners staying at the hotel who are wanting to kill angels, Vox pretends to let them in, and we know that he's faking it. I do also want to point out Vox interacting with his gigantic pet shark, which looks completely awesome. And that essentially segues into a meeting with the V's, which we did see part of this clip online via New York Comic Con, where Vox goes ahead and proposes the idea of starting an uprising against heaven, which eventually leads into the show's second musical number once we get up into heaven, and Yeah, they're already starting off the season with amazing musical numbers. Like, I have no doubt that the soundtrack for season 2 is going to be amazing. Like, they definitely cooked with these first 5 songs of season 2 thus far. But before this musical number, we got a little bit of a reveal with the character of Vox, where he reveals that when he was alive, he was the leader of a cult. He does though say that it's an influential group, but it is essentially a cult, and we did get some foreshadowing to this reveal during the Trust Us part of the Has Been Guaranteed musical number, where we saw a bunch of people in robes looking at Vox's Trust Us logo. Now, I'm very curious if Vox's status as a cult leader when he was alive was what allowed him to become an overlord in the afterlife, because I don't think we got an explanation on how these characters even become overlords. But either way, I'm gonna go ahead and speculate that Vox's status as like a cult leader is what allowed him to create the Vox Tech Enterprises company in the first place. And I think his past of being a cult leader is gonna come into play when he eventually starts his uprising against heaven from what we've seen from the trailers. I think Vox is gonna use those skills that he learned and implement that into his uprising. But now let's go ahead and move on to the second episode of this second season titled Storyteller. And this episode is set entirely in heaven, which we have heard previously via New York Comic Con. And the episode starts off with Sir Pentious in court, presumably taking place immediately after that season 1 little end credit tease of Pentious arriving in heaven. And while this trial goes on, we get the introduction of another new character, the Speaker of God. And she allows Sir Pentious to go ahead and tell his story on how he got up into heaven, which flashbacks all the way to London in 1888, revealing Sir Pentious's backstory, where we get to see him in his human form, where he was an inventor, but he secluded himself until one day he went ahead and witnessed a murder, which so happened to be done by Jack the Ripper. I was not expecting Jack the Ripper to even appear in this series, but he went ahead and appeared and he killed someone, and Pentious saw it but never did anything about it. Pentious then tells the story of how he tried to kill Adam with his death ray but ultimately got vaporized by Adam, and that essentially right there is how Sir Pentious ended up in heaven. He reconciled his mistake of not doing anything when that murder happened. He went ahead and sacrificed himself during that last extermination, and that's how Pentious ended up in heaven, and that was just some great story added in. And Sarah is just in disbelief that redemption is actually possible and all those souls could have been redeemed, which is what eventually led into her musical number of Sarah's Confession. But Pentious is released and is able to live up in heaven, and Emily goes ahead and shows Pentious around, and we noticeably see throughout the musical number Like You, which, by the way, another banger song from this season. Pentious is noticeably not feeling happy that he's up in heaven at all. In fact, he looks very sad, and that is because he wants to be down at the hotel with his friends. And that is just great growth with the character Sir Pentious. So Emily decides the best thing to do is to create some angelic egg boys for Sir Pentious, and he seems to be very happy with it. And he's also given his own room with a mural of his friends, but he still doesn't seem to be completely satisfied, as he still wants to go down with his friends. Now, before we go ahead and talk about the character of Lou, we gotta talk about that one cameo from Lilith. I was completely not expecting Lilith to appear in this episode, let alone this season. I fully expected Lilith to be like a small little tease towards the very end of the final episode for season 2, setting her up to be a potential main antagonist for season 3, but it's cool that she showed up here, and she's essentially seen just ignoring the calls from Charlie and Lucifer. There's still some mystery surrounding her character, so I'm hopeful that we could learn more about her character in these next couple of seasons. But now going ahead and talk about the character of Lou, she seems to not be handling the death of Adam very well, to the point that she starts hallucinating Adam. And they're seemingly hinting that Luke never told Adam something that whenever he was alive. They hint to it in this episode, and there's a lot of mystery on what it could be, but I'm thinking that it's that fact that Luke probably had feelings towards Adam. And it did bring us to the musical number for Gravity, which again, another banger. It is in fact my favorite song of the entire season so far. They did also release this song during New York Comic Con. And I've listened to that song so many times throughout the weeks leading up to this season just because it's such a great song. And in speaking of Adam, his son Abel now takes his father's place as the leader of the Exorcist Angels, to where he even gets his own version of his father's mask. And he might be dealing with some daddy issues because Adam is now officially a deadbeat father. But the episode then ends with Heaven deciding to put up a shield around like the entire place and essentially putting Heaven in a lockdown mode. As this then segues into the end of the first episode of season 2, where Emily tells Charlie that Penchus is up in heaven and redemption is possible. And I really ended up enjoying these first 2 episodes of season 2 of the show. It got me back to being very excited to the show, even though I already was very looking forward to what was going down in the show. But some of the stuff that we got revealed in this episode makes me more excited to what we could be seeing going down in these remaining 6 episodes that we'll be seeing throughout the next 3 weeks. And also the soundtrack is off to a banger of a start, and I can't wait to listen to the rest of the songs for season 2. Like, I cannot wait to check out these next few episodes for the series just because these first 2 were so good, and I highly think that this season will be better than the first one. But that was a breakdown of the first 2 episodes of Hazbin Hotel Season 2. Be sure to stay tuned on the channel next week for when I go ahead and cover the next 2 episodes of the series. But be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section of these first 2 episodes, as well as your speculation on what will be going down in these next few episodes. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video, and have a great day.